Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network's YouTube channel. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can find us on Facebook and stay up to date on our Facebook group, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for podcasts, hosts, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good day, everybody, wherever you might be on the spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's weekly podcast series, The Seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Mekas. If this is your first time tuning in, please click like, subscribe, comment, and don't forget to follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Today, a race for what? Growing up within a Black community, witnessing racism firsthand, activist and a doctor in psychology tells his successes and mishaps in building powerful alliances with melanated people. His parents chose to raise him in the only diverse community in St. Louis, where he was able to witness and experience racism and cultural differences. It sparked an inner desire to understand why we created such a world. He's always had an entrepreneurial spirit, starting a tennis teaching organization with a college coach. Shortly after graduating with a degree in finance, he played a pivotal role in structuring Nellie's early business ventures, including Apple Bottoms Jeans and Dirty Entertainment. Let's welcome to the seance, Dr. J.D. Mass. Welcome, brother. How you doing?
Thank you, sir. I'm doing great. I love the intro.
Thank you. Thank you. I try to keep it as lively as possible.
I'm feeling it.
So take us back in time. I mean, that's an interesting bio. When I read that and I saw, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
We need to bring these life experiences out in the open and make
Sure.
them visible. Because what's going on in the world right now is just nuts.
It is. I think I want us to not be so afraid of the chaos, though, because, and I saw this on a Deepak Chopra interview on Jimmy Fallon, and he talked about the change process brings forth chaos, right? When you boil water, it changes from liquid to gas. That boiling, chaotic part, that's kind of what we're going through. So my hope is that the gas that we're going to is a lot better off than where we're at right now. So
yeah, it's a transition. I was working and getting my degree in metaphysics. I had this thought, and it was one of the things I put in my sort of dissertation. It was like these things that seemed chaotic, that seem like violence within the universe, is not violence at all. It's the state. It's that period of transition between one state of potentials to another state of potential.
Right.
And it's how the universe works.
Yeah.
So take us back in time. How did this journey for you start?
So it started really from my parents' choice in how to raise their children. I'm the oldest I have two sisters, and they intentionally wanted to raise us in and around Black communities and to intentionally not be racist. So we had to learn about systems early on. We had to understand the impact of decisions. So as my parents were raising us, they didn't really know what they were getting into, but they knew that they wanted us to have an experience that they were kept from. And in that process, we moved next door to the family that became my best friends. And it was grandmother, it was mother, uncles, aunties, and my childhood friends living in the same house. Right. And so, you've seen the movie Soul Food, Big Mama's House, or other types of renditions of that. this was very similar to that, and it was a very communal kind of living, and it was very welcoming to me, and I was embraced to be who I was, this little short shy kid, and I was, welcomed and loved and made fun of plenty, and developed my tough skin, but at the same time knew I was supported and whatnot. So in being friends with them, it opened up doors to other friends and relationships with other melanated folks. And so, I was this white kid amongst a lot of black friends. And in going through that process, I got two things really happened. One, I got to see how the world treated them,
Mm.
separate from how the world treated me when I wasn't with them. And two, I got to experience something that I knew was rare. I was in two different communities and almost worlds apart that were very close together in driving range, right? Within a 15-minute drive, I could be in a black community, and then I could be in a white community, and I knew I was one of the few that was experiencing this. And so that felt like a purpose. It became my purpose to just help kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah, because when you start to see how the community, how the separate communities work amongst each other within the community, and then how at the same time too how they're separated, and how the community
Yeah.
treat each other as separated,
Hmm.
which is interesting. I didn't know this, and well, I knew this years ago when someone told me every city, if you visit any city, every town or city has a street called Division Street. Every town,
Really?
yeah. And I didn't know that. I was like, what? And I was like, yeah, every street has a Division Street, and from the smallest towns to the biggest cities, it's like what? And that's like some sort of like a division between the communities.
Wow.
Yeah. But now so as you're growing up and getting at high school and college and stuff, how did this help you either through college or what happened through that moment of your life?
So, I got a chance to see the difference. For instance, I could take back anything to the mall, no problem. I could
Mm.
take back my friend's clothing that had ring around the collar, no receipt, no nothing, and get a brand new shirt for it.
Yeah.
They could take back brand new items that still had the tags on them and would be given trouble. And I would go
Wow.
back to the same person and get the refund or the exchange that they were trying to get. And so that became eye opening, and that set me on a path. Originally, my path was more covert because of that kind of experience. So I wanted to go into banking after college, and I wanted to kind of work my way up the banking industry and then blow it up from the inside, or at least impact change and offer loans to people that were being denied because of the color of their skin. And so that was my path as soon as I left college. But I also had a friend that became an international music star at that same time and
Mm.
blew up on the scene, and that was Nelly. And so he would send me ideas. Hey, I want to do this entrepreneurial idea. Hey, I want to do a nightclub, or I want to do a shoe store, or I want to, have a clothing line, or all these different things. And so as he was able to hire me on, I became his business manager to help him set up his entrepreneurial endeavors. Of course, I still had this mission in the back of my head. I thought, okay, I'm going to meet some really powerful people as we start to make these businesses successful. And
Mhm.
from there, I'll be able to have the impact that I wanted.
It must have kind of set you off too to earlier, that seeing your friends or being with your friends and seeing how they were treated,
Yeah.
that seeing that difference of how people are treated and stuff like that. It's like that had to have set you off. That was, lack of a better word, you must have been pissed off and really, I don't
Without
know.
a doubt, it spurned an inner fire that made me angry in my responses at times when I could have been a little more political. But yeah, and on the flip side, right, both my family, which I'm very grateful for, were so welcoming of my friends, and their families were so welcoming of me. I got a chance to see that this really was unnecessary, right? So when the police are stopping us and harassing us, I got the chance to really see that you guys are, what are you, you know, you're doing this based on a prejudgment, on a systematic kind of way of trying to cause harm to a community, and it really just, it was, it made me want to know why. It made me really want to know beyond the what that's happening, because I got to hear that all the time. Why
Hmm.
was this happening? Why did white folks create a system like this? What was going on in us? Why did we desire to appear, in superior, right?
Yeah.
And so why would we cause harm to people that have done no harm to us? And that really made me, want to understand that.
Hmm. Yeah. Having a doctorate in psychology and business, especially in the sciences, what is your thought i- about racism? I mean, why? What is there, this deep seated angst or unappreciation with our fellow human being just
Right.
because the color of our skin?
So I want to take us back in time to, 600 years ago or whatnot, even more potentially. People with less melanin in their skin ended up in a northern region, whether they became less melanated as they traveled that way, or they were born with less melanin and moved that way to protect themselves. For whatever reason, that became an that became a reality. The European region was full of white folks, what we call white folks today.
Yeah.
And in that region where there's less sun, because we have less melanin, we're able to survive in these sections. There's also less natural resources, and our bodies get our natural resources. We get our nutrition from the planet. And so I think a few things happen from a psychological standpoint. One, if we're not getting all of the nutrients, then we're not whole, we're not healthy as can be. And if you study where a lot of the diseases that we look at came from, it came from these northern regions.
Mm.
So if our body's not imbalanced, we're not healthy. If we're not healthy, that affects our mind, body, and spirit. Two, we have a scarcity idea. And so and I'm, for the listeners that can't see the video, I'm holding up a bottle of water. If you and I, Reverend, thought that this was the only water that we had available to us, if we thought that this was the only water that we had available to us, then we probably wouldn't be as friendly to one another as we are being now, because this seems like a limited amount and we both need this water. So if
Yeah.
we have this scarcity mentality, it develops a natural competition in us, because every sip of water you take becomes a becomes a sip of water I can't have, right?
Yeah.
Because there's limited when in this scarcity idea. And if you look at how we built our entire our entire economic structure, it's all based on scarcity and trying to control resources.
Yep.
And so if I was told that the true definition of racism came from the race of conquering these other lands, it was a European race. And that became, and you hear the competition in the word race. And so in that in that process, we see a people that are living off of the land, and they're appreciating the land, and they're having a great time, and we don't know how to come and experience that and say, hey, can you share your resources, which they were proven willing to share. If you study any of, from Christopher Columbus to other, they were proven willing to share their resources because there was an abundance.
Yeah.
Right, it's a village to raise a child. We're all in this together. There's more than enough. Enjoy. And we didn't come with that. And so I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you didn't recognize someone was giving you something that you wanted so bad that you tried to take it.
Mm.
Right. And so that became, and I think that became sort of this competitive thing. And from there, whether it's jealousy that stems from there, this zero sum mentality, they have something we want, we have to manipulate it. It became, but in the competition, there's a level of desire to harm those that you believe you're in competition with, either because winning is either going to make you just go out and be the best version of yourself, or it's going to make you desire to it's going to make you desire to harm somebody so that you come out of right. And so all of these psychologies are going on, and I don't think they were intentional. I wish we could go back and just give ourselves a hug and say it's okay, we're
Yeah.
worthy of all of this. We're worthy of the goodness, we're worthy of the sharing, we're worthy of supporting one another and just having a good time and enjoying what the earth provides us. But we're in such a competitive state, and if you look at it, it's black versus white in our mind, it's men versus women, it's Democrat versus Republican, it's so much competition. We build our business plans to make a new business, but you got to know who your competition is. Why can't they just be collaborative people in the same industry as us?
Yep.
Everything about this is competitive. And you look at the term race and you have this easily identifiable thing. I can tell this person is melanated from a distance. I'm going to form my opinions and approach based on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and
That's
especially in today's society, and especially in the political arena
right.
or business, really doesn't matter. It seems like we're always using race as a crutch
Hmm.
as an excuse to do something or not do something. I mean, we're supposed to be evolving, we're supposed to
Right.
be evolving species, but it's this such a basic thing that we haven't been able to, I wouldn't say get over, but it's like the elites are perpetuating it. It's like they're
Yeah.
keeping us enslaved in this mentality, breaking free
And
from the scarcity.
right. And so I think part of the human nature that we haven't experienced is the true healing of that racial component, right? We have reparations in other kind of forms of our life, or other cultures have received it. The Jewish people, when the after World War II, who had been harmed in the Holocaust, received a form reparations. They received their own state. They, right? We have not experienced repairing the harm of and it's a humanitarian thing that I think would help us as less melanated folks really get an understanding of our own humanity and be able to, you know, dismantle some of these systems that have such an elite leadership with such greed at the top,
Yeah.
and see that the rest of us, if we got along, if we healed the harm amongst ourselves, how much more enjoyable our lives would be and how much more access we would to everything that we need.
Yeah. And I've also noticed another side of the coin is I've experienced this with some friends of mine. It's not really a hate or an angst against another race. It's a fear.
Right.
It's some people grew up, like I knew somebody that was afraid,
Hmm.
literally deathly afraid of another race. It's like,
Yeah.
what? If they saw somebody of color, they would cross the street. They go, and I
Hmm.
mean, scared, like
Right.
being scared of a dog because you got attacked as a kid or something like that.
Right.
It's like, does this all, especially young kids,
Hmm.
think this is something that's also taught?
Yeah. Without a doubt, it's taught, but also through the images we get to see, the messages we get from media, from in our schooling, right? Like if you think about it, our education system does not teach the does not teach about any other cultures.
Mm-hmm.
When I speak to people who are from other countries, especially countries of Black and brown folks, they learn about us. One, they have to because their safety may depend on it, and they have to understand how we think. But they learn about so many other cultures. We don't. And I believe that's a purposely part of kind of the trickery to keep us ignorant, but also we also learn to pledge our allegiance to the flag, or that we're the greatest. We're always talking about how America's so great. And so if you don't have that barometer of what makes us so great, how do other cultures behave? We
Yeah.
only think that this is how humans behave, and that we don't understand another culture because we don't have any reference points to them. And so, yes, if my imagery is now coming back that they're out to harm us, or they're violent, or they're dirty, or whatever we've painted pictures of, and we can't even see these things in our own selves, in our own communities, then it becomes a naturally scared kind of response.
Yeah. Now to get a little cool and a little interesting. So explain a little bit about your time with working with Nelly.
So, as I said, he reached out. I was working at the bank. He asked me to come on. He hired me for the same salary initially to be his business manager and help him start his entrepreneurial ventures. And then his management team came to me and said, "Hey, this thing blew up so fast for us. We all knew each other having grown up together." And they said, "Can you also do the same for us? Can you help us?" And so we ended up forming a partnership where I helped the management team, and we brought the business management under one roof, and we kind of went from there and tried to build this Nelly empire, so to speak. And so I helped kind of departmentalize the group. We had a touring department, we had our merchandise department, we had our entrepreneurial department, sponsorships and endorsements and general management and relationship with the labels and publishing companies and everybody that you have to kind of do business with. And we would have meetings and we would talk about those things. And this was part of what I brought to the table. And then his career just exploded so fast that we didn't have the luxury of selling 500,000 records, which is a great first start, and then going up to a million or 2 million, and then by the third album you're really solidified and now you're very successful. No, we came out of the gate, and the first week it was Britney Spears, Eminem, and Nelly, right? By the fifth week it was Nelly on top, and he rode on top of the billboards for quite some time after that. And then his second album came out and it was tremendously successful. And so he was literally up there with Eminem on top of the world in this music scene for those first 4 or 5 years of his career.
Yeah.
And I got the chance to have resources to build Apple Bottoms jeans. His other friend tried to do Vocal clothing, and I got to learn the difference between licensing arrangements and building from scratch, and all of the components that go into manufacturing, and how you have to have it distributed, and how sales go, and how you finance these things. And so it was a great, opportunity to learn, but it happened fast.
Well, I bet. Yeah, you got to learn as you go. It's out of the frying pan into the fire and
Yeah,
off in.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So before we continue, how can people find you and find your work? Yeah, for those who are watching, the website is scrolling on the bottom, but I give you the honor to give people that information.
So go to Race for What, and that's FOR, raceforwhat.com is my book and my work website for speaking and whatnot. And I have blogs on there. And then you can find all my social media links from there. I also have a podcast with a Black gentleman that was raised in Iowa City. So he grew up around mostly white friends and peers. I grew up around mostly Black friends and peers. And so we're learning about each other on
Yeah.
this podcast as we go through it. And so same difference dot life is the website for that. Again, you can find all of our social media links on that as
Yeah.
well.
That's a good name. That's a good
Yeah.
name. And it means a lot too. It's
Yeah.
like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are these here you have 7 steps to healing or a vision. Explain those
Yes.
7 steps.
So it's 7 steps to healing the harms of our culture. I think that step one is kind of what we've been talking about in the don't take a step. Like, let's recognize that there's a way we've been taught, there's things that we've learned that we need to get an understanding of. So seek understanding. Don't just move because now you want to help make the world a better place. Let's learn how we've been learning and learn what making a better place looks like. So that's step one. Step two is to acknowledge the harm. In any 12-step program, the first part of what you do is kind of have to acknowledge that we have a problem, right? And so it's not just the harm of anti-Black racism, but also some of the harms of our culture in general in trying to control things, right? When you come from that scarcity, you want to control. It's a different approach versus if you come from an abundance, you just want to be a part of it, right? So I use a quote from Oppenheimer where he splits the essence of life, the atom,
Mm.
and he turns it into a bomb. And so he says at one point, maybe we shouldn't be learning, maybe we have to question how whether we should be asking how things work. Well, it's not the question that's the problem, it's our approach. If you're approaching it trying to control an outcome, then yeah, that's the wrong approach. But if you're approaching it, say, how do things work so I can be one with those things?
Yeah.
I can be one with life. We're all connected. I can see the connections. That's a very different approach. And so that's part of the harm and acknowledging the harm. And step three is the beginning of the change process, which is letting go of a lot of our past, a lot of how we've been developed, letting go of our control and competition, letting go of the power and privilege and whatnot. So how do we let go of that so that we can be open to the new changes that would come? And step four in our opening is to appreciate the value of other cultures,
Yeah.
right? If we can appreciate the value of them, not just, right? And these terms are often used in finance as well, but appreciating somebody for who they are, who they've been to us. Let's take a real stock of how Black folks have not retaliated, right? We have this fear of revenge often that I hear, and I do not think that that's a real fear. I think it's a projected fear.
Mm.
But we have this fear of revenge, and there's been no signs of it in 400 years of any mass killings just generalized and put out there, even in responses to some of the mass killings that we've done. And so it's not in them. And I think we can appreciate that. And if we do, then healing the step five and repairing the harm and making an actual intentional repair, right? If you hurt your knee and you really bust it up and tear your ACL and your MCL and you can't walk on it, you have to go through an entire process of healing that, and it has to be intentional, right? And so if we don't take the time to really experience intentional healing in this country, then what happens is if you don't heal it, you'll start walking on it and you have to overcompensate and you make other parts of your body harmed, and
Yeah.
now you're hurt even more and more, and we don't get the experience of, even if that knee will never be as perfect as it was, what will it be like? It'll still be much better than if we didn't try to heal it, right?
Mm.
And so experiencing that intentional healing, and now the steps after that is, okay, what do we do now that we're healed? How do we behave differently? And if you go back to the 12 steps program, you need another mind. You need somebody else to say, hey, your mind is what got you here. we're not going to use the same mind and expect to have a different result. We're going to have a different approach. So here's how this works. And so we should rely on different cultures that have a different approach, that are more sharing and caring and loving, so we can learn, experience that, and now we all can participate. Our level of melanin in our skin does not make us good, bad, or any other indifferent, right? Developed because of evilness and whatnot. I believe it just developed because of a scarcity mentality and all of that brings. If we can learn a different mindset, we can actually manifest step 7, which is manifesting humanity.
Are there any projects that you're working on right now, that anything coming up, any projects,
So I'm
any
working on an online course for the 7 steps. I'm also working on I want to get volunteers into some of the lower income areas and just help beautify the area, right? When we come outside, I think a lot of us miss real life often. We look at the concrete, we look at the buildings, and we look at the streets and the cars, and we think about all these, and we see these signs of of advertisements, and
mm,
we miss the trees, we miss the grass. We even get angry at the grass for and the weeds for coming up into our concrete. Like, how
yeah.
could you, you know, ruin our concrete with your life? And
Yeah.
so just reconnecting with that. But I want to do some, get volunteers to go into lower income areas and help beautify the landscaping of that, because that does have an impact on everybody's mentality. It also will hopefully increase the property value and start the healing process in that way. And so that's what
Yeah.
I'm looking at doing soon.
Yeah. What do you see in the future? What do you see our human race in the future, as far as this, our thoughts on race? And because there's times that I reflect on some of these sci-fi movies, like Star Trek.
Mhm.
I mean, the only race you see in those movies or those programs are other races from other solar systems.
Right.
You got people, your entire Starfleet are many different races. So when we talk about a race of somebody of a different color and going, really, really, guys, we're
Mhm.
fighting over this.
Right.
Where do you
Right.
see the future of this?
Well, there's more information so given to these having access for these younger children, and so I think that there's an opportunity that as time is growing, even though the powers to be may, like you said, like us, kind of split and controllable, because it's harder for us to move. If you drop a bag of marbles on the ground,
Mm,
you got to go pick them up and bring them together before you can move them to the next room, right?
yeah,
Whereas if they were in the bag and together, it's easier to just go to the next room with them, right? So I think the powers to be definitely, as you were saying, want to create that difference. And I think it's just becoming more obvious for us now how that's working. And so I do see change coming. I do see us going through this boiling process right now. And, my only concern with it is how destructive, in this competition desire, right? Elon Musk is fighting over with whether he's the richest, or Bezos is the richest,
yeah,
or Gates is the richest, or all of these different, like, who cares? You're only 3 people out of billions that have all of this to, right? So even at that level, there's so much competition. How much are they willing to destroy to try and hold on to that? And how do we let go and formulate new economic systems and social systems? And I see that potentially happening because there's definitely a desire for that change.
yeah. We got to fight back against the system, the power in numbers, and
So
an
I will
entirely
challenge
different
you on that.
mindset.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I will challenge you that they're not afraid to fight us,
Oh no.
right? What they're more what scares them more is us not using their systems and formulating our own level of community that is in peace, and right, evil or hate and destruction doesn't want peace. Like, that's that's what, right? So if we let that go and create our own level of interactions where we're sharing and supporting one another, and we don't participate in this game that they've created,
Mm-hmm.
in this, you know, prestigious world, then that is what makes them more afraid. As long as we're participating, going to fight them doesn't scare them one bit. They got
Yeah.
the fighting methods.
Yeah. And, I heard back in ancient times, certain like ancient Rome and some of the other ancient Roman empires, other empires and stuff back hundreds and even probably thousands of years ago, is what the villages, towns, cities did was if they didn't like what the monarchs were doing or the royalty were doing, they would get the entire town together and leave. They would all leave the city. And then now those who ruled had no power. They lost their power.
Right. Exactly.
So,
And that's what's more of a threat to them than protesting and fighting back. And they've they've got all of that figured out in their world. What we If we create a different world, because a world is a social construct, now they don't have that power.
yeah. Yeah. These are techniques that definitely need to be taught. They're not going to teach them, especially in public
Without a
school.
doubt.
But getting the word out there and helping educate the masses of what that game plan is, what these tactics are, will help bring us together as one human race rather than trying to separate us.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So before we wrap things up, again, how can people find you? What's on any social networks and stuff? How can people?
I'm on Instagram and TikTok under Race for What, or even some of our podcast is same underscore difference underscore podcast, but raceforwhat.com and same difference .life.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, reach out to me through those sites, and I would love to continue to interact with folks all over.
Definitely. So before we wrap up the show, what would you like to offer as a takeaway for our audience today?
I would like to offer that in this world of competition, often we tend to focus so much more on what's outside of us, right? And so I know that we've been taught that competition brings forth us wanting to be the best version of ourselves. And often what we find us doing is positioning ourselves instead of just being the best version of ourselves. Instead of focusing on our health, our mental health, our physical health, our well-being, we are focused on how do I position myself so that I can pay my bills, so that I can do these things. And if we let go of some of that positioning and just be the best version of ourselves, if you think about thinking of 1,000 people and what's best for them when I make my decisions, it's a daunting thing. But if you also think about 1,000 people are also thinking about what's best for me when they make their decisions, it's a little more welcoming thing, and it's easier to make those decisions with other people in mind. So let's just be the best versions of ourselves and let go of the competition of the world.
Yeah, competition. With the age of technology and as it is today, we shouldn't have to compete.
No.
We should all have the equal amount of opportunities, no matter where you come from, especially with today's technologies.
I mean, it's the approach, right? Like, why couldn't the technology that's taking our jobs be used to say, oh man, we don't have to work so hard, we can enjoy life? But instead, they're taking our jobs, and we need this monetary exchange so much, and they're, you know, making it so much harder to just afford a comfortable lifestyle. It's the approach. And if we can switch that approach, it's not as easy as, of course, me and you having a conversation, but it is an enjoyable process if we work together on it.
Yeah, with the scarcity thing, I think too is the monetary system. I think slowly, and it should sooner than later, is the whole monetary system should come to a collapse. And monetary-based society rather than, moving towards a resource-based economy.
Yeah. So you say that, I mean, we don't even really learn. Money is simply an exchange medium, right?
Yeah, an
Which
exchange of
is,
energy.
thank you very much. That is exactly what it is. It's an exchange of energy. Whether you made a product or you're offering a service, there is energy in that exchange. We're the most intelligent, life force on the planet, correct? We're
Yeah.
supposed to be. And we're the only ones that use a monetary exchange to get things done. And then we can actually think that it's okay to take it out of the exchange process, control it, and harness it, and hold it back from being in the flow of
Yeah.
exchange. Like we're
Yeah.
missing so much that just life has to offer because we're so taken away from what we, you know.
Are you familiar with the work of Jacques Fresco?
Yes, I am.
Wow.
Yes.
That
The the
engineer,
the
man,
yes.
a
So
model of the of a new world, man. That is
my
unbelievable.
sister's gonna love you for asking me that. Uh, so yes, right. I mean, this is one of the things I learned from him. I actually wrote about him in my book in the sixth or seventh step. But he said that really opened my eyes. He said, we say these things are human nature, that cheating each other and stealing from each other and trying to control things and all of these things are human nature. Okay, they are. So it's caring and sharing and loving and supporting one another. But we didn't build systems around caring and sharing and
Yeah.
supporting one another. We built systems around, you know, cheating and capitalizing and all of these ideas of
Yeah.
how do I get the most and control the most and do the most and,
Yeah.
and even manipulation.
Mm.
So how we built systems off of these things, so much so that our advertising is so much of manipulation instead of just being an honest platform of this is what my product is, how it's offered, and let me make the best product for you. No, I want to manipulate. So how do I capitalize the most on this? And money doesn't build anything. Money doesn't feed us anything. It's used in our systems, but it doesn't do it on its own.
Yeah. So archaic.
Yeah.
Man. JD,
Yes.
thank you, brother. Thank you
Thank
for
you, sir.
sharing your time with us.
I appreciate you, and
And
thank you for putting up with all my technological
oh,
crap. My cameras going in and out and all of that.
it's
But yes,
technology, man. It's
yes,
keeps it lively though. It's kind of like
it
people like,
does.
whoa, dude, what's going on?
Hopefully, enough people were smoking some good marijuana, and they're like, "Wait a second here."
What, dude? What's going on, man? This is cool.
Well, I really
Man.
appreciate you very much for this platform, and
You're
keep
very
up the
welcome.
great
Very
work.
welcome. And likewise, honor to have you on here. And keep me posted what's new
Yeah.
out there, and in any way that myself and Conscious Radio Network can help out, because that's
Okay.
what this platform is about, is to help to create a community of wholeness, of truth, of love and kindness. And any way I can help promote or help collaborate, keep me posted.
Yeah, let's do that. I love this opportunity to build something and not just have a one-off interview.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
Keep in touch. Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to doing more now.
Definitely, man. Definitely, brother.
All right.
JD, blessings, my friend.
Blessings
Have yourself
to
a
you
wonderful rest of
and
the day.
your listeners. Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for watching Conscious Radio Network's The Seance. And we will see you next time.